When it comes to modern reboots of classic arcade games, I'm much more forgiving than most. I always look forward to seeing an updated take on old school material, even if the result is often less than stellar. But despite a few clunkers, games like Pac-Man Championship Edition and Space Invaders Extreme have proven that a reboot can not only recapture the magic of the original coin-op, but build on the formula in incredible ways. On paper, Q*bert has everything you would need to make a great reboot. For one thing, the weird-looking creature is a lot more expressive than your typical 1980s action hero. There may not be any cinemas, but our hero curses like a drunken sailor every time he gets bitten by a snake. What's more, this world is already designed to mimic 3D, making it the perfect fit for an era where everything is made up of polygons. Despite all its promise, Q*bert Rebooted is a crushing disappointment that sends the 33-year-old franchise in the wrong direction. It attempts to modernize the formula by mixing up the mazes, adding a bunch of new characters, and creating a lengthy single-player experience featuring 40 different stages, each with 3 levels to complete. There's just one problem. The game is impossible to control on just about every PlayStation platform. In the arcades, Q*bert offered a control scheme made up entirely of diagonal directions. While certainly unorthodox, it was a simple enough concept to wrap your mind around, and set the Gottlieb classic apart from the competition. But instead of sticking with the simple 4-direction approach, Q*bert Rebooted allows players to move in 8 ways. Instead of making the game easier, it only helps to turn each stage into a frustrating nightmare filled with more suicides than an average game of Lemmings. Using the DualShock 4, Q*bert has an incredibly tough time jumping in diagonal directions. This is especially troubling considering a single misplaced jump will result in our hero falling to his death. I cannot stress how frustrating the game is to control on the PlayStation 4. Puzzles that appear simple are nerve-wracking for all the wrong reasons. There's simply no consistent way to control diagonal jumps, and that's a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. The gameplay is a little easier on the PS Vita, since you can literally point to the block you want Q*bert to land on. This is a big improvement over the PlayStation 3 and 4, but is far from a perfect solution. I found that my fingers kept getting in the way of important details, and I was dying for a whole new set of frustrating reasons. Even if the busted gameplay was fixed through a patch, Q*bert Rebooted would still suffer from a litany of other problems. For starters, the story mode is the definition of overlong. It would be one thing if the 40 stages were radically different, but you'll notice a lot of repetition from one stage to the next. This problem is only compounded by having to play 3 different levels in each stage. But the most egregious decision involves the stars you collect by completing different tasks in each stage. The 3 challenges are always the same: complete the level, beat the clock, and collect a certain amount of points. But here's the thing, you can't earn all 3 stars in a single run. You will need to play each stage a total of 3 different times in order to collect the different stars, which feels like it was only done to drag out the single-player campaign. On top of collecting stars, gems will pop up throughout the various levels. These gems can be used to purchase other cute people, including an old wizard, a sinister girl, a robot, and more. These characters don't change the gameplay much, but some will offer a visual flourish. For example, the Cunicorn leaves a rainbow trail behind him. Despite all this negativity, I do have some good news. This package includes the original arcade game, which controls well on all 3 PlayStation platforms. This old-school version has quick gameplay and is still a lot of fun. But despite having a great time dodging 8-bit snakes, I couldn't help but be reminded of all the potential that was squandered in the reboot. It's really a shame, as there's so much to like about the game. Had they tightened up the levels and thrown out the filler, this had the making for a solid first attempt at a Q*bert reboot. The whole thing falls apart the moment you attempt to control the rotund star. There were times when it felt like yelling at the TV was more effective than using the D-pad. It should not be this difficult to move my character diagonally. What fun I had with Q*bert Rebooted came from replaying the original game and not going through the lengthy story mode. Even as somebody ready to embrace retro reboots, I couldn't get past the busted gameplay and overlong campaign. Q*bert deserves better than this. Do you like retro reviews? What about modern game reviews? How about modern reviews of retro reboots? If any of this sounds even remotely interesting, then you should subscribe to this channel. And even if that doesn't sound interesting, you should still subscribe. I don't have any good reasons now, but give me a couple hundred videos and maybe I'll think of something. Oh, and don't forget to let me know what you think of Qbert.